So this is the first of the videos in a series for the Bauer Supreme Shadow pads. This set was a demo set from Just Hockey. They lent me to these, so huge thanks to them for that. Unfortunately, I can't do a coupon code like I did with the Vaughn set in the past because Just Hockey helped me with these. Check out the links in the description to them and buy from them. They're not affiliate links or anything, so I don't get a kickback. Shows them that helping me with videos like this is useful for them, and I'm just not a huge pain to deal with them. Now, with that said, make sure you mention that you came from Hockey Reviews. It'd be greatly appreciated on my end. And again, shows them exactly where they're coming from and that these videos are useful. So this video is going to be two kind of thigh rise tests in one, specifically the Hyperlite 2 and the Shadow line. Now, they're very different thigh rises on the two. The Hyperlites are extremely stiff. As you can see, this is the X stiff option, and the Shadows are stock, which are now softer than ultrasonics, which is something I never really recommended Bauer doing on Supreme line, but we'll see how the results are on here. Now, there's a few things I want to call out in this video beforehand that I noticed and are kind of like learning things from my side of things. But for details, the thigh rise test is done with shots at around 65 miles per hour. Machine's not perfect. I try to get it as close as possible, but the machine, like I said, isn't perfect, and the accuracy isn't perfect, and it's kind of all over the place. So that's the goal for it and kind of where the setting is turned to. What I realized on here is I've done this video before with two different lines, so the G5 and G6 for Warrior, and it worked totally fine. And I realized after filming this and after editing this, I shouldn't have done it on two different lines. Now, I have a full review of the Hyperlite 2 line coming out in the future, and the Shadow stuff will come sooner. And I tried to kind of make as little work as possible for my producer, because there's a lot of work on her side to help me do these puck test videos, and this isn't our job at all. And we have full-time careers, and this is a hobby of mine, so I'm always grateful for her for that, but it's a lot of work. So I tried to do this thigh rise next to the Shadow to show them next to each other. The problem is the Shadow is a large, and this is an XL. And the other problem is the Shadow has a very different shape than what this one does. So you can see it in the video when I'm trying to do the butterfly test, the thigh rises aren't like next to each other, and there is a gap, which isn't the fairest comparison because generally when I'm playing, there's like no real gap like that. And it's not a perfect thigh rise test on here. So unfortunately that is the way that is, and that's my fault, and I apologize, but gives you a pretty good idea of how the stiff thigh rise on this performs compared to the very soft on the Shadow. The other thing that looks a bit misleading, but it's actually true and like not badly done, because the way I line up the pad is the boot is against the post in an RVH, and I am basically facing the actual puck machine how I would be if someone was coming down kind of from the wing and I'm kind of posting up. Because of the shape of the Shadow pad, it looks like the thigh rise is pointed kind of into the net, and it kind of is because the pad is curved and shaped that way, but really my boot and the post itself was still lined up the same way I do with all other things. It just didn't look that great on here because of the shape of the pad. If it was a straighter pad like this, it would have been fine, and you can see how that looks on this one. But the one thing I did notice though is when I did the video for the Hyperlite 2 part and I did the post integration, the puck machine is kind of on the, like if I'm looking at it, the left side of my room, and you kind of have to tilt it to the right a bit to get into the middle of where the thigh rise is. Like you have to aim the actual machine. You can't really move it all that well into the middle just because of everything behind it, so it kind of sits in one spot. When that happened, and I noticed pucks were kind of coming in this direction off here instead of like straight on a bit more, so that was a bit of a mistake as well on my end. I actually think that didn't really help this pad in terms of how that worked, because the force wasn't coming right at it, it was kind of coming this way, so it didn't totally help, I think, in the results. I don't know, I would have to do a retest of that and see if it would be a big difference, but these pads still, you see how the results of them afterwards, and it's not really making these pads look bad or anything. I just noticed it looking at it, and I'm not most thrilled with the results. Now for the results, a little bit of like an overview before I talk about it in the slow-mo part. These pads performed basically exactly how I expected, to be honest. Bauer went to a softer break on the Shadows, which you're gonna see, and I think it is a huge mistake in terms of specifically the Supreme line. I really think Bauer needs to differentiate their two lines more, and they're kind of blending them more and more together with the calf hinges, with the knee block hinge, now with the stiffness being like two sections away where it used to be Hyperlite, and then I think there's like a soft, and then ultrasonic, and then Mach, and then X stiff. Mach and that soft for Hyperlite were far away. Now this is like getting closer, and I don't really understand why they're doing that at retail. I'm guessing Bauer has some sales thing that people say the Mach is too stiff, but I really think for a retail option that is stock, ultrasonic is really the softest you want to go there, and I'm really surprised that they're kind of bringing these lines closer and closer in features. But maybe the Vapors are going to be really stiff. I can't really see them doing a total 180 flip for specs, but it's weird to me that they're going from something that was very stiff pad and made sense when they have a softer line to one that is much, much softer overall. So like I said, that's weird for me, and the results on here definitely show how soft those pads really are. So again, this video would not have happened without the help of Just Hockey. So if you want to see more stuff like this and you want to support them because they let me borrow this and take a look at it, check out the links in the description to them. Whether you're in Canada or the US, you're making any hockey purchase, click that link in the description, shop from them, let them know you came from Hockey Reviews. It'll be greatly appreciated, and that way they know letting me borrow their gear like this to do videos on is actually useful and stuff people want to see in the future. Otherwise, if you want to support the channel without buying anything, check out links in the description to Patreon, buy me a coffee. Everything through there comes again back into the channel so I can keep making more content and doing real reviews. Towards me a little, yeah. One more. Okay, a little closer to me. One more. One more. A little closer to me. No, to me, yeah. Closer to me. Yeah. Okay, a little closer to the net. Yeah. Wait. and you want to support the channel and you need a base layer and a protective supportive base layer that helps protect your growing as well as your hips, check out the Cortech. This is the Pro 1.0 pant, so this one is not quite as restrictive, and this is kind of tight right here in this X pattern. You might have seen these as Under Armour before, or Bauer for the hockey specific ones. There's also the Core 3.0, which is a lot stiffer, as you can see. Really helps protect my growing and keeping it kind of in place and make sure it doesn't overstretch itself. And you click the link in the description, use that discount code to get a discount off, help support myself, as well as get you some pretty awesome base layer pants that really do help with injury prevention and help stabilize your core while playing. So I mentioned how the angle on here kind of looks misleading, and you'll definitely see that in this clip right here and all these clips of the Shadow getting the RVH test done in them. Now for the results, this is exactly as what I expected. This pad is pretty soft, and I actually did notice that the Shadow line itself when playing, when I dropped in the butterfly, I could see the thigh rise move a lot on shots. Not saying that all of them went in, a lot of them just moved and it kind of stuck in between the thigh rise, but I also haven't been playing extremely high hockey, and I know people will say I don't even play high hockey, but I haven't been playing the good leagues I play in the winters, it's just summer stuff, but I definitely noticed that thigh rise moving on me. Sometimes that kicks out huge massive rebounds, which you'll see in clips like here, but other times it just doesn't, and it just kind of goes in or just sits between your legs. Now anything that really hits the tips of these, that barely moves the pad and just goes in, is always going to go in. It happens on all pads, the X stiff pads, the softer pads. If there's not enough material behind where the puck is, it's just going to move and kind of move out of the way. Now when you actually watch from the front view of these, it's kind of interesting, well more so the Hyperlite 2, where you actually see the boot and the whole pad flexing when it gets hit, not just the thigh rise, and that is how stiff the pad is. It kind of transfers that all the way down and it just moves kind of on your leg a bit, where this pad is so soft that yes, the boot moves a little bit, but the thigh rise is really just getting out of the way quite a lot. I don't have issues with people wanting soft pads. I just want people to know what soft pads do for thigh rises and how a puck interacts with them. If you want a softer pad like this, it's fine and all good. For me, the Hyperlite 2s are a great stiffness and I love it, and you can see the excellent results you get on these pads themselves. Again, anything up at that top binding though is gonna go in. Like there's just not enough pad actually behind it to do anything. You really need something behind there to actually stop the puck from going in and force it. These pads are an X stiff. They're the stiffest pad Bauer makes, and you can see how much these shots are really only 65 miles an hour are doing to the thighs on here. Now, when I play with these pads, I've never once noticed the actual pad moving too much and pucks getting behind it. It usually plays very firm and totally stays in the way and does a really good job for that. And I really love them for that. My RVH with this pad is fantastic, and I love breaking up passes from like backdoor and people trying to quick jam in, and the thigh rise just stays there and gets in the way, and it's awesome. And it's exactly why I want a stiff pad like that, and it does exactly what I want with it. Now you can see how little the pad here moves compared to that Shadow in terms of the actual thigh rise, and you can really see how much more that boot is moving, because that's where kind of the flexing is coming from. It just kind of gets pushed down throughout the pad and the whole pad kind of moves on it. These are very impressive with how stiff they are. It's a very good job in terms of actual thigh rise seal and like puck deflection, and this is hard to beat. The stiffest Trues are the closest to this, and I would have to kind of go back and compare them two side by side. But now on this butterfly, you can definitely see that gap, that what I'm talking about. When I'm filming, I noticed a bit of a gap, but I really couldn't get them closed any better. You can also see the massive size difference between these two. That large Shadow really does take effect, and you can see the more curved shape. If it was straighter, maybe it would cover a little bit better on those thighs, but it unfortunately didn't. And unfortunately, it's not the best overall seal, and I tried the best to do this. I try to be consistent with all these videos, so if I really did anything else besides just going in the butterfly and sitting here, I feel like it would have been a little bit different compared to other videos, so this was at least getting it as close as possible. Now one thing I totally recognize I screwed up on is I was way too deep onto that carpet part. I should have really been up more onto the ice part when doing this test, and I was just trying to get it so the rebounds kind of stayed closer into the net area, because I knew the rebounds on this thing was going to be massive. But I did that mistake. I did make that mistake, and I'll definitely move out further next time. I kind of regret doing this the way it is, but I don't have these pads again, so I can't do the actual like retest for this, but I should have been out more on the ice. Now, this butterfly test doesn't really do a great job, in my opinion, on the Shadow line. Yes, you can see it flex and move a lot, but really anything in the thigh rise here, because they're not really closing, it's getting a bit of a kind of even worse result might have had if they're next to each other. The pads really do flex though when they get hit. I noticed it, like I mentioned previously, just watching them and looking down when a puck came in, and I really recognized and saw how much those flex there. Now there's a good example that we just saw of the Hyperlite 2 getting hit right on the tip and it's still keeping out, and I kind of flinging it out, and right when it gets hit on the tip there, X stiffs are still going to flex, but they do a much better job of actually something with the puck rather than the Shadow. There's a bunch here on the Shadow where it hits it and it just goes straight into my knee pads, and that's obviously not something you really want, but that you can see the difference in like speed of the puck going in after hitting a Shadow versus hitting the Hyperlite. The Hyperlite slows down that significantly. Obviously that's a stiffness coming into play there, and doing a lot better job on the Hyperlites than the Shadows are. Again, these Hyperlites are X stiff, so they're not like a stock Hyperlite on this sense. This is my spec pad versus a demo pad that I get to borrow. Right, and when we see how big this gap is, that's where I'm really disappointed in how I didn't end up closing this up as much as possible. So I apologize for that, but it's still a good indication. And when I move down here, I try to kind of line it up a bit better, but still a good indication of how much these two pads move compared to each other. So if you're looking at specs, you kind of get an idea of what you want and how they'll perform. Again, this video would not have happened without the help of Just Hockey. So if you want to see more stuff like this and you want to support them because they let me borrow this and take a look at it, check out the links in the description to them. Whether you're in Canada or the US, you're making any hockey purchase, click that link in the description, shop from them, let them know you came from Hockey Reviews. It'll be greatly appreciated, and that way they know letting me borrow their gear like this to do videos on is actually useful and stuff people want to see in the future. Otherwise, if you want to support the channel without buying anything, check out links in the description to Patreon, buy me a coffee. Everything through there comes again back into the channel so I can make more content and doing real reviews.
You're watching HockeyReviews.ca.